Right, so we're back for episode 10 of World of WTF cast, or what the fuck cast. We won't keep it child friendly, it doesn't matter, does it? So we've got a very special guest. He's very big in the private server scene, so yeah, Warrior TSW. I'll let you kick off with a little hello, tell us your experience, and if you want to plug, your YouTube channel, Twitch, whatever, feel free, now's the time.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me. My name's TSW, Warrior TSW on Twitch, YouTube. I've been playing private servers for about 7, maybe 8 years now. I played first in TBC retail. I saw the South Park episode and I was like, okay, I need to get me some of that. So I don't know why. I wish I played vanilla, but I never did. So I played towards the back end of TBC. And then as soon as I heard about private servers, I basically got into TBC and have been basically playing TBC since. I played until Mr. Pandaria, and then I played TBC from there onwards. Just because I never really finished what I saw people running around all this Sunwell gear and high-end T6 gear, and I never got any of it in retail. So I've just been living through that dream for the last 7 years or so, trying to live those glory days.
So I assume by you saying that you've now farmed countless Sunwell plateaus, TK, SSC, all of that. You've cleared all content, I assume.
Yes, to varying degrees. Like on some servers, the scripting's better than others. So, but yeah, mostly High Gel and Black Temple. I've done that for over a year on a certain private server. So yeah, tier 6s and a lot of tier 5. All these private servers, like the new ones and the fresh ones. All start from tier 4, tier 5, so you work your way up. So Sunwell is my least experienced, but it's the same game, just different encounters.
Yeah, and for anyone who wants to get a TBC fix and see some really high-end quality raid leading, yeah, I would encourage you to follow Warrior TSW on Twitch, because yeah, it's a good watch, and you seem to raid a hell of a lot as well. To be fair, every time I look at you, you're raiding. It's like.
Okay, well, currently I'm playing 2 days a week in TBC, so it's not that much. But yeah, I mean, part of the game's raiding, and I play the game, so yeah.
So you're back on Classic now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm trying to get back into Classic, try and do some TBC prep. If they're not doing fresh, then well, I do like Classic, but I'd rather be playing TBC. But if I'm forced to play Classic to get ready for that transition from Classic to TBC, yeah, I'll play Classic. Classic's fun because you've got like the bigger community, a lot of the better sims for the game are there, and it's just it's nice playing a legit copy of the game. Like I don't play TBC because I don't want to pay for the subscription or any of those like ethical reasons. It's because I like the game.
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously, for everybody's benefit, because we are going to be leaning on you a lot for Warrior information. That's what you're here for. You're here to share that absolute wealth of knowledge that you've got. How many Warriors have you actually got across servers? Classic, TBC, private servers. How many? Okay. A guess. How many would you say you've got?
A while ago, I made a thing on my Twitch where I linked screenshots of all the Warriors I've played on the different servers. So I got retail, standard. I've got Emerald Dream, which was the first private server that I played, so that was eons ago. Nostalvius, Lights Hope, Archangel, Alliance and Horde. I got Hellfire 1. I've got Hellground, the relaunch of it. Warmain, Gummies, Warmain level 80, Northcraft level 80, Sunwell level 80, Northdale, Netherwing, and Classic.
I tried counting with you. I lost it.
So
I lost it at about
I've played
10.
Warrior a couple times. All of them maining Warrior.
That's amazing. So like I said earlier, now moving nicely over to Fake QT, you are the Warrior version of Fake QT. So Fake QT, do you want to say hello? Tell us how many mages you've got. Can you beat Warrior TSW?
No, I don't think so, because I actually used to play a lot of different classes. It's just been like since Classic that I've actually just stick to one class. But like on most TBC private servers, yeah, I'm always playing mage, especially because I like to do the speed leveling, the race. I actually often quit right after. So yeah, I don't know.
But how many mages have you got, just out of interest?
Well, on retail, I have one at level 60, and then I have a couple at level 30 plus. that I'm preparing for TBC, because I'm planning to play a lot of arenas, and playing on one mage, I don't feel like that's gonna be really good, because if you need to swap like arena partners or test new mates, it's really awesome to have like alts, and then you don't really care about the arena rating. And then if you like the new teammate, you can definitely just swap to the main. So for TBC, I'm probably gonna have like 2 or 3 mages at level 60.
Well, I mean, I'm laughing, but I'm going to be the same. I think I'm probably on 8 or 9 druids now across servers. I mean, I've got like 5 druids on retail, just on different realms, and obviously, 2 private servers, couple on classic. Yeah, it seems like we're all similar. You've got that one class that you love and you play it. So let's talk about that one class that TSW loves. So we'll go down the same format as every other one of these videos. So we want you to be get all of the knowledge from us guys, and as I say, particularly always the guest who comes on who knows more about the class than any of us, and be prepared. You know, is Warrior right for you for TBC? Obviously, I think TSW is going to tell you it is. Otherwise, either that or he's mental, one or the other. So we'll get the talents up, and we'll go through each spec. And as I say, I'm going to pick on you a lot, TSW, obviously. So I'll let you kick off each time, and then me and QT can sort of just throw our thoughts in afterwards. But if we start with sort of the arms tree, you know, like what's your views on arms? So overall, we're not going to go into the specifics yet. We'll go around the table and look at arms from a PVE perspective, a PvP perspective. And then, obviously, once we've all put our views out on that, then we'll start digging into specific talents that are good, that have changed, you know, that have been added, whatever. So, go on, give us an overview of the arms tree.
It's not as good as it was in Classic. That's kind of like the main takeaway. You don't have your tactical mastery ability in the arms tree, so that's been moved to the protection tree. So when you're changing stance, you don't retain up to 25% rage, which is big. If you're tanking now in Classic, you'll know that the biggest difference between being arms or DPS and being tank is you lose all your rage. Every single point of rage is lost when you change stance, and that really slows you down. You know, if you want to mocking blow or intercept, you need to save your blood rage to use that, or use a rage pot. That is the biggest downside of tanking. If you could save your rage whilst tanking in Classic, you could, like, tanking would be so easy, and it would be, you know, that's the real difference. But yeah, other than that, arms is pretty similar, other than sweeping strikes and death wish changing positions. So sweeping strikes was in arms, now it's in fury, and death wish was in fury, now it's in arms. So in conjunction with not being able to save rage changing stances, and not being able to cleave 2 targets down with sweeping strikes, it really does slow down how good and how quickly you'll be leveling as arms. But other than that, the rest of it is pretty similar. So you'll just work your way down the tree, get your impale, get your deep wounds, get some or all of your two-handed weapon specialization, go axe if you have an axe, and you'll generally will have no problem getting the axe. Because what you'll generally do is probably use whatever vanilla weapons you're using until maybe Ring of Blood, and then you can just get the two-handed axe from Ring of Blood, and then you continue using your axes until, well, your Ring of Blood weapon until level 70. If you need to use your if the axe is better from Ring of Blood.
So is there just on that? Is there a reason why you wouldn't go swords? I mean, just, you know, playing devil's advocate, the sword specialization sounds quite good. You know, 5% to get an extra attack on the same target versus 5% crit is what? Why would you go axes?
Just 5% crit. Well, if you're low geared, the crit is really, really nice, just because it's using your proccing your flurry and increasing your damage that way. I think, I'm not sure, is sword better? No, sword is better overall, but for leveling, I'm not sure actually. If hold on, I'm doubting myself. I think sword might be the way to go.
I don't know. I'm just thinking sort of Lionheart's champion quite early on So you've got that massive strength proc. You know, it's got like the Crusader enchant
Okay.
basically built into the weapon.
I'm
with sword
swapping my
strength.
answer. I'm swapping to sword. So ideally you go sword because you get the rage from the auto attack as well. So that keeps you pumping. I've not played arms in years.
Yeah,
in TBC.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, obviously, where you're going to shine is obviously going to be when we're talking about tanking. And as I say, it was a genuine question. You know, Axe could be better.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, as I say, I've got one max level warrior on retail. You know, I've not played warrior since Wrath of the Lich King.
I think all things being equal, you would go sword.
Is there what about raid viability? Obviously, you are a raid leader on multiple TBC realms. You know, would you take an arms warrior to a raid? And if you would, why? If you wouldn't, why not?
You would always take one warrior to a raid. I think that's going to be the meta going forward. And it depends what the meta will be. I don't know what it is. I can't tell the future. I don't know how difficult classic TBC will be. But yeah, it's fairly safe to assume it's more likely than not that there'll be a tank warrior and at least an arms warrior. So yeah, it's the blood frenzy that you have there, which 2 points increase the physical damage to the target by 2% when you've got bleeds on it. So
See,
I
always thought it was physical damage, not just melee damage. I mean, it says melee damage here, so I'm assuming it's right. This is a 2.4.3 talent calculator, but for some reason I always thought it was physical, unless that got changed in Wrath or something like that.
That's really weird. I've always known it to be physical.
Yeah, me too. I've always thought it was physical damage, and now it's saying melee. I'm like, well, actually, now your BM hunters, all right, their pets benefiting from it, but the hunter itself is not benefiting from the damage. It's strange why that says melee, and I think we actually spoke about this on a previous podcast as well. Because I've always known Blood Frenzy to be physical. But while you do some research, so QT...
Yeah, just say physical on...
Go on, you keep looking it up, and QT, what do you know about Arms Warriors?
Well, if we look at the talent tree, right next to Mortal Strike, in TBC we get the second win, and from a PvP pointer's perspective, that's really huge. So you're going to be facing a lot of druids, for example, in arena. And the fact that whenever you get stunned or immobilized, you're going to raid health and rage. So that's like such a huge change compared to classic, I would say. And it's going to make warriors actually really fun, even if you get rooted and stuff like that, because you can regen health. On the other hand, regarding that thing about should you go with axe or sword, I think it all depends on what weapon you bring from classic. Because maybe maces or maybe axes or swords would be best on the first TBC servers. But what happens if you come from next Ramas with Minifil, the mace from Kills with that, or if you come with the X from AQ. So I don't really know which one I would prefer. I guess it all depends on what weapon you bring.
So do either of you know when it comes to mace specialization? So obviously, for anybody who's just listening back on Spotify or something like that, obviously mace specialization with 5 points, it's with one each point gives your melee attacks a chance to stun your target for 3 seconds and generate 7 rage when using a mace. Now, if the target was stun immune, so now we're talking a boss, do you still get the rage?
I've never spec'd mace spec, but yeah, I assume you would.
Yeah, so it would make sense, wouldn't it? So it's got PVE and PvP viability.
Yeah, I mean, not very much in PvE because bosses tend to be stun immune.
Yeah,
and the thing that I hate as a warrior is if targets are getting stunned, the tank isn't getting hit as a warrior and you're not getting rage from damage taken, so it can slow you down if the warrior is just there auto-attacking. Versus, like a paladin, they need to get healed to regen mana so they can continue to pump. A warrior needs to take damage to do the same. As does a druid. All tanks need to take damage and they flourish when doing so.
Yeah, definitely. Out of the three, yeah. Well, what you were saying there, exactly right. Yeah, paladin wants to take damage, so yeah, spiritual attunement kicks in. Druids probably, they get the better deal, don't they? They generate so much rage actually from hitting as well. So
yeah, it's like druids are like warriors, like worst nightmare kind of. They compete for main tanking spots, and druid generally has a easier time. Like they scale much better as well generally.
yeah, definitely. Did you, when you were just looking at Blood Frenzy, is it physical?
Yeah, it is physical. It is physical. I was having a heart attack. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, I was the same. That's why when I read Melee, I was like, hang on, I've been telling everybody it's physical damage for like the last 8 months.
Yeah, I've always just calculated it as 4% damage.
Exactly. So we've spoke. There's quite a lot of PVE there. Obviously, Fake QT. You touched on PvP. So their PVE viability, we're saying we probably want one. We want one to bring that 4% physical damage.
As long as you're doing more damage than you being replaced by someone who makes up for that 4% physical. But because it is physical, like if the meta is hunters, then they're benefiting from the physical. So the arms warrior will be in. If we're not stacking hunters and we're stacking more warlocks, then the arms warrior will be out, because you'll just fill it with another 800, 1000 DPS whoever versus a 600 DPS arms warrior. And if that's a 400 DPS difference, if that's 4% physical damage is more than 400, sweet, bring the arms. If not, we're not taking the arms.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
As simple as that. And because people don't know that answer necessarily, it's an unknown right now. But as we've all played Classic and seen the speedrun meta. If people need an arms warrior, like the top guild's going to get an arms warrior in immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been my worry all along is, the meta in Classic and the meta in TBC private servers is so different. There's going to be a lot of warriors fighting for spots and limited spots for them if it stays the same. So what about PvP though? So have you done much PvP as arms?
A little bit, yeah. So I've played a bit of Season 1 recently, and it's the Endless Rage build, which is the absolute go-to, because you don't have you're not decked out in brutal gear and like high-end gear. The Endless Rage, the final talent, seems to really be one that is the must-have. So that's increasing rage generated from your damage dealt by 25%. So that means that in PvP, if you're not the kill target, your only income of damage is when you're attacking a target. And that Endless Rage really is a nice damage boost to you, so you can actually use your abilities and crank out the damage in the CC.
Yeah, that makes sense. I should probably wait to ask you this actually until we're on one of the other trees, but I'm just going to ask it now anyway. So the meta in Classic is obviously like for tanks, it's Fury prop, predominantly Fury, and then picking up the essential talents in prop. Do you see that in TBC still?
It depends how easy the content is. That's where a lot of the kind of like theory crafting or suggestions land. If the content is super duper easy and the tanks aren't getting hit very hard, that's a bad position to be as a warrior, because you're not going to be getting the rage income from taking damage. You're going to be swapped out for a feral druid, and you're just going to have an arms warrior who's going to be improved thunderclapping. If you even need to stop damage coming in on the target, you might not even have you just be the comp changes. You might not even have any warrior if the content's easy, because you'll just have a rogue improve exposed armor, and you'll just have the feral demo roar. But if the content's easy, you might not even need a demo roar. Like if it's the same as Classic, like who demo shouts on a Classic speedrun? Nobody. And it's just going to run on from there. Like the warrior, like you might not see any warrior if the content's easy, because they can't tank, because they don't get damage and rage. And like an arms isn't necessarily, the arms is there for the debuff, and if you don't need to thunderclap and you don't need the 4% physical damage because you're stacking warlocks, if it's the warlock meta, you could potentially see 0 warriors in speedrun TBC.
Yeah, well, we've been saying on the last few episodes of this that you could potentially see the meta shift to arcane mages. If the content's that easy and bosses melt so fast. At the moment you do have a mage. I assume you've probably got a mage group in your raid team on TBC, where maybe 2 of them.
Yeah, 2 or 1. Yeah.
But we could get to a point where we got like four mages and a shadow priest in one group.
Yeah, you could also see one where you stack melee again. If trash is the biggest bottleneck for speedrunning, and whirlwind does work really nicely. If you're pulling single packs, that's good. So if the trash hits hard, so you can't pull 2 or 3 packs at once, that means that your whirlwind is great because that's hitting 3-4 targets. So that's working well in a standard group size for each mod pack. So that works really well. You can't really get much better than whirlwind because your Seed of Corruption isn't great on 4 targets. Yeah, it's okay, but you're going to be live tapping, healers need to be healing. Like, it kind of slows your raid down a little bit with 4 targets, but warriors, cleaving and whirlwinding really shine on that size. So it all comes down to how tough the bosses are, what's the the warrior situation, and how easy or difficult is the trash. Because if the trash is hard, you might want mages there more so for the CC rather than for their damage, and how long the trash fights last and how long the boss fights last.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
It comes into being a big just thought experiment at this stage, because we don't know. Nax is cool because we've got the PTR. We can kind of see Blizzard want to give us a bit more of a challenge. Will that go forward onto TBC? Hopefully, we don't really know.
So again, this is really off topic. We will move on to Fury in a second, but if we go just round the table, start with Fake QT. What's your gut feeling on the meta? So what? Knowing what you know from playing all the private servers, knowing what you know from Classic, how do you feel? What would you, if you had to put money on the meta 25-man raid comp, what do you think you're going to be stacking?
I think it's difficult because, no one in the private server scene seems to be talking about the super sabotages for engineers and TBC. And yeah, I could see, man, the melee comp still being really, really good if you have sabbers as well, because there isn't that much knowledge and theory crafting in TBC compared to vanilla or classic. But you mentioned the arcane mages. I think that could really become something if the damage of the bosses is really low together with the health pool, because we're still unsure if actually everything is correct according to the private servers.
You're putting €100 on this now, Fake QT. We're all going to have a bet.
Caster stacking casters is probably going to be the thing, but could be surprised. We really could.
I'm never going to a casino with you. I can't get a straight answer out of you. You won't know whether to stick or twist. You'll be sat there all day. Go on, TSW. What's your gut feeling?
I think casters and paladin tanks will be the way forward. That's what I think is most likely. Not necessarily what I would want to see, but I think, the content, you're only going to get more powerful once you clear the content once. And I think being, full tier 4, tier 5, even on these fairly buffed TBC private servers, you can pretty much just Seed of Corruption and Holy Paladin consecrate your way through the dungeon anyway once you've got Bis gear. So I think it's going to be that kind of stage. It's going to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the meta on TBC private servers now, I can't see it changing. I think, you're going to have a hunter group, you're going to have a warlock group, shadow priests in these groups are going to be important. Well, not in the hunter group, obviously, but in the group with an elemental shaman, boomkin. You're going to have one of each of those. You're going to probably want 2 shadow priests, maybe one with your healers, one with your arcane mages. I don't see it changing much personally, because if it's the optimal way for maximum output, which is basically what it is, you stack BM hunters, you stack your resto shamans, an Ellie shaman, an enhancement shaman, so you can rotate bloodlusts. I think if we try to think of it as it sort of doesn't matter whether the boss lasts 30 seconds or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. It is sort of the maximum output composition you can get.
So warlocks are silly as well. They have such good single target shadow bolt damage and the best AoE damage. And they have life tap. So as long as you have a druid or someone just looking after them with hots every once in a while, they're so. And so I started playing a warlock a few months ago as an alt, and I lost what little respect I had for warlocks. Just went down the pan even further because it's so I did my first dungeon. I was top damage meter with no gear against pre-raid people, and it's dude, warlock's so easy and you do so much damage. It's
I was watching you in
silly.
Karazhan on your Warlock. I don't know if you remember, but yeah, I was there in chat watching you.
Yeah,
and that was when I lost all
great.
respect for you. So just seeing you play a Warlock, I was like, nah, it's disgusting.
It's so silly. It's so silly.
Unfollow, unsubscribe. But
Sounds
no,
good.
you're right. And the thing is, like you say, it's the more of them you take, the more powerful they get, which is the fucking ridiculous thing. You know, you take one Warlock, he's going to do well. You take two, both of them are going to do slightly better. You take three, all of them are going to excel. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're so cumulative when you stack them that it's hard not to.
If you're playing a warrior now, wanting to pump numbers in a speed run, you probably want to go Warlock in TBC.
Definitely. I mean, I watch Crix when he's raiding, and he's just got Shadow Bolt macro to his keybound to his mouse scroll up wheel. That's it, and he just sits there just doing that for an entire boss fight. Don't get me wrong, it's great. Yeah, you're doing good damage. That's amazing. But I also watch it, and I'm like, I fucking couldn't play like that. I'd just be bored.
Well, if you want to interact with the stream chat, or be on the treadmill, or talk to your parent-in-law, or revise for your exam that's happening tomorrow morning at 9:00, play Warlock.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where the treadmill bit came in, because I mean,
Learn a
do I look
second
like someone who's
language,
ever been on a
play
treadmill?
Warlock. But here's a tip. There's a program called Auto Hotkey, so you can get Google the script for it and just hold down the button, and it'll spam the Shadow Bolt hotkey 1,000 times a second.
Or ban ink.
Or you can get some that you press it once and it'll spam it until you press it again. So you can literally just go AFK as a Warlock.
Yeah, well, if you've got a decent mouse, you can actually do that with, like speed. Is it
like
Speedfire key or whatever it's called? Yeah, where you can just get it to constantly spam it.
But there's a lot of people you'll see who are playing WoW, and you'll see all of their action bars light up a lot when they're mid-cast through a Shadow Bolt. That's because they've got a script that's spamming the hell out of that hotkey, and all the action bars are getting spammed, because number 4 or whatever is being hit so rapidly.
Yeah,
and it's not them physically pressing the key that quickly, but you do squeeze in 2 more Shadow Bolts. If you're missing 200 milliseconds between Shadow Bolts, you might think that you're nailing Shadow Bolt to Shadow Bolt, but when you do something like that, the cast bar never disappears. It goes full, and then it already has started filling up again with the next Shadow Bolt.
Yeah, and I suppose if you have to move for anything, the second that you stand still, boom, it's going. Oh yeah,
that as well. Yeah. But also, you never want to jump as well. You always want to walk, and then just hold the key down, walk, press W and then release W, and you're still holding the Shadow Bolt button, so you Shadow Bolt straight away. You don't want any of this jumping animation where you're falling down and you can't be spamming. You want to be, you want to hit those 99s on Warcraft logs.
That's all that matters, isn't it, really? That's what gets you in pug groups at the moment. You have to post your logs before they even invite you to raid.
Yeah, I'm it's my other account on a different server, different faction. Yeah, that's me, I swear.
Exactly. All right, anyway, back on topic. So we know what the meta's going to be. It's going to be just, I don't know, 2 tanks, 18 warlocks, and 5 healers. That's all you need.
If the content's easy, you might have even fewer healers. Dude, who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I hope it's difficult.
I hope it's difficult, yeah, because Classic is if you told me that Classic was going to be this easy, I don't think half the guilds would be pushing as hard as they are in Classic, because it's not that much bragging rights, No. The speedrun is where the bragging rights are, because it's not in the progression. It's whoever's server doesn't lag and you can get in 10 minutes earlier. Or whoever doesn't push it absolutely to the limit. We took 8 healers. Well, we took 6 because that's the only way that we can. You have to play it so risky to have a chance.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, that takes. I'm not going to say I'm a fan of speedrunning. As in, I understand it, and it's actually the community just trying to make the content more difficult than it is, because it is too easy. Any guild can get through, let's say, AQ40 in 2 hours. But, it's all about them pushing it and going, well, hang on, we do it in 40 minutes. We're better than you. But we used to, even back in Wrath, we used to solo heal 10-man heroic ICC. We used to have a resto shaman called TJ, who's going to be joining us on Classic, actually, as a shaman. And he used to just solo heal every boss. And Putricide specifically was so difficult to solo heal, but it was just so we could get through it quicker, because obviously we got to the point where we had so much gear. You know, we'd been server first on that realm for 2 years, that you just start pushing yourself just to make it interesting. Otherwise, there's no point doing it, is there?
It's strange that from a Blizzard point of view that it's I guess in an MMO it's more, you know, expected that the community would make the game themselves in some way, because it is like an open sandbox kind of game. But at the same time, you'd have thought that the developers of the game would, you know, do something that would nurture that kind of creative gameplay that we're making for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, Kargos and his hardcore runs, for example, you know, the whole hardcore scene, not something that I personally enjoy, but, you know, I applaud the people that do it. I couldn't get to level 10 and then delete my character. It would break my heart. Let alone like 50. Fuck that. But let's get on topic, quick. Okay. So, Fury. I'm going to let QT kick off with this one, because he's been sat quiet for a while we're just having a chat like we're sat in the pub. So QT, Fury, what do you think about Fury? PVE, PvP viability, then we'll start looking at the changes.
Yeah, well, I kind of wanted to finish arms real quick, because...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but like, for leveling, so if we come with classic gear, with like all this hit and crit, why wouldn't like warriors be really good at speed leveling all the way up to 70? Like, I could see maybe 4 warriors and healer actually level really fast, especially if you come with like mace specialization. So like all going in while winding and stunning everything, like just cleaving your way through. I could see that becoming like a really good way to level actually in dungeons.
I don't think you'll see mace spec. Sorry to jump in.
Yeah,
damage is where you want to be, not CC.
Yeah, but like if you then go like 5 warriors, no healers, and you're just stunning everything.
But it's going to be RNG. Like, you're going to run into situations, and also like the rage gain isn't that big because you get extra rage on a crit or a sword proc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally, like you say, just the stun. And
yeah, but like if you could replace a healer and a tank that way, and bring 2 more deeps,
I think
like
you just have like
5 guys,
Holy Nova priest, just spam Holy Nova and just run through.
Yeah,
something like that.
I would lean more towards, if you're talking speed running from in dungeons from 60 to 70, and again, feel free to disagree, you know, and why, but I'd go prot paladin, 3 warlocks, and a Holy Nova priest. That would be
but you
my...
don't have Seed of Corruption in the beginning.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. No, it's a good point. When do you get it? Is it like 64,
70, I think. 70 or 68.
Oh, is it 70?
It's like, it's not good for leveling because you don't have it. So.
Oh yeah, well, all right, yeah, I'll take that back. 100%. So then you're probably looking mages. Yeah. It's going to have to be mages.
Same match as we had classic.
Yeah, just basically spell cleaving. Oh, or melee cleaving. I mean, rogues.
Yeah, if
as long as they've got blade flurry.
Yeah, melee cleaving with sabers compared to like a mage AoEing, I think the melee is really gonna be better, to be honest.
Yeah, you're probably right. And no downtime, not having to drink. Yeah. As long as the prot paladin's not having to drink every pull.
But if you go with like inferiority, you have blood craze. So if you get crit, you regen health. Together with second wind, so like if you get stunned or immobilized, you gain rage and health as well. I mean, I guess for some dungeons, there's a lot, like, I think it's Bloodference or Ramparts, there's like a lot of mobs actually stunning. So if you regen health all the time and you have 4 other warriors when you're CC'd, just, you know, using Wild Wind and Cleaving and Sabers, I don't know. I just could see it becoming really good. But then again, like, then you reach 70 and you're not needed, right? So
yeah. But then, really for you there, then TSW, like, you know, arms or fury, which one's got the best cleave? So if you was doing a melee cleave group, you probably wouldn't be arms. I wouldn't have thought.
I think you would go for probably fury, because in TBC, one big change is that whirlwind hits with both weapons, not just one. So your offhand is hitting with whirlwind as well. So that's cool. You can get sweeping strikes with either build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'd
I
probably go
generally
for
don't know.
Fury.
I would.
'Cause
Looking at it, I would go Fury. To me, it looks like the cleave build because, like, yeah, you've got sweeping strikes, like you say, but you can get it in both. But then you've got the improved whirlwind, which reduces the cooldown of whirlwind, obviously, by a couple of seconds.
The second to last talent on Fury, improved Berserk Stance, that's a big attack power boost. And you've got 5 out of 5 Flurry. Oh, also, I've got to think about this at level 60. Okay, so we're dialing the talent points back as well. Yeah, I think definitely Fury, because you can't get Immortal Strike and any Flurry, or even Mortal Strike and Sweeping Strikes until you're like in the mid 60s, I think. So, yeah, I think Fury is going to be the way to go. Because Flurry is like just free damage.
Yeah.
And if you are running the dungeons as a warrior, it's really nice the talent to get flurries and rage. So as long as you're taking damage that can crit, which basically every mob does, you're going to be almost, whoever's tanking is going to have 25% increased damage all the time within rage, which is big.
All right. Well, it seems to be a good time to move on to Fury then. QT, are you done with arms? Are you happy?
I'm good.
Yeah. So I mean, just overall then, and this again, feel free to argue, but I would say arms tree. If you're a warrior in classic at the moment, wanting to play arms in TBC. You're definitely going to be, you're going to be very, very useful in PvP as an arms warrior. And in PVE, depending on the difficulty of the content, most guilds will probably take one at a very maximum. Would we agree with that?
If you're going naked, you do a bit more damage as arms. And also, if you're in a low, low geared raid, arms is good just to have the tank needs extra threat. Blood Frenzy for 4% physical damage is good just because you're helping out your tank. Even if it's a paladin, like the paladin still auto attacks, there's some benefit for a paladin to do more damage with Blood Frenzy, even though it is a small amount. It helps the other tanks a lot more, but it's still there.
So would you, again, your leveling knowledge on multiple warriors, would you level from 60 to 70 from a classic into a TBC launch as arms?
It depends what I'm doing. If I'm solo questing, I think arms is good. If you're in a dungeon cleaving, I think Fury's good.
Okay, cool. Well, that makes it very clear. So let's move on to Fury then. So Fury in a PvE and PvP sort of perspective overview. QT, I'll let you kick off first. As I say, me and TSW have been talking a lot. So what's your thoughts on the Fury warrior?
If you look at the PvP point of perspective, you never see Fury warriors, to be honest. Like, Mortal Strike is way too huge in the arms tree. So, like, PvP wise, I think you should just skip it. PvE wise, yeah, I could definitely see it being like the thing to do all the way up to 70. Especially because you don't like hit with all the gear you have from Classic. So it's not like you're gonna miss a lot of the attacks. And you even get like 3% more hit chance with melee weapons in the Fury tree. So definitely, if I was going to level a warrior all the way up to 70, Fury would be the thing. And probably even in the beginning, as well, of actually doing dungeons at 70. I really feel like it's a strong tree with the right gear. If you bring enough hit and crit, of course.
Yeah, well, you also get some self-healing, don't you, when you're running around killing stuff from Bloodthirst, so I can see that useful if you was out grinding.
Yeah, but I don't think it's that much, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very small.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as I say, I've not leveled in TBC as a warrior, so yeah, I don't know whether it's, it might be negligible. You might just want to use the Dark Moon card Heroism instead, or something like that for self-healing.
I mean, I would probably just be leveling together with a healer anyway. Like, if they don't have a dungeon group, I guess leveling with a healer is going to be really huge, especially if it's going to be like your future arena partner or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be honest with you. Again, at sort of low levels of raiding, so we're talking Karazhan, just tier 4 in general. I see more Fury warriors than arms warriors because most of them go for obviously the blacksmithing weapons with a haste proc. Dragonmaw, I want to say Dragonmaw.
Yeah.
I mean, have you got many Fury warriors in your raid, CSW, or any?
For tier 4 and tier 5, we had myself main tanking, and then we had another warrior who swapped between arms and protection. So if we needed more tanks, he was going protection. And when we were happy with just a warrior tank, a paladin tank, and a fel tank, with just 3 tanks, he was playing arms. So I think we'll see that going into classic TBC as well, where, you know, it's nice to have an arms, but it's nice, like, you know, it's a hybrid kind of warrior spot where you play what is required. And you need to do a lot of damage as a fury compared to an arms to make up for that 4% physical damage boost for the entire raid. But if you're able to pump out massive numbers as fury, yeah, you make up for that 4% physical for the raid, so you'll be taken as a fury.
Yeah. So, but single target damage. So yeah, sort of non. You're not worried about buffing the raid group. You know, you're just in it for yourself. Is Fury probably the better one?
Selfish, yeah, but not by a huge amount. And it's also easy to play Fury because with arms you're using slam, improved slam. So slam gets buffed, or the improved slam talent gets buffed. So instead of reducing, I think in classic it's like 0.1 second per point of improved slam, whereas in TBC it's half a second per point of improved slam. So your slam goes from being, is it 1.5 seconds in classic down to half a second in TBC? Like, you literally are auto attacking, then doing half a second slam, then auto attacking, then half a second cast of slam. Also, slam can't be interrupted or pushback. I cast a slam in classic whilst I was leveling, and the mob attacked me, and it pushed my cast bar for slam as if I was a caster. I wasn't expecting that because I've played so much TBC that, you know, it's not seen as like being a physical cast bar. It's like a cast bar as if you're casting Holy Light or something with, you know, knockback on that cast. So that's really weird in classic. But it's like a mini. You can think of it, if improved slam, like a mini wind fury. You just do an auto attack to generate rage. You do your improved slam, which takes half a second to cast, so it's not instant like a wind fury, but you can slam so much more frequently than a wind fury. Like, it's a very consistent half second cast wind fury. You can think of it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's strange how you would have a physical attack that can be interrupted or pushed back, not interrupted. But I wonder if it can be interrupted then.
On some private servers, it can be. I don't know what it's going to be like in TBC.
Getting your slam counterspelled.
Yeah, dude. We had Arms Warriors raging in the past.
That is quite funny.
It's good fun, but it's good if it means that someone else doesn't get interrupted. But there aren't many people in melee that can be interrupted.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So overall, as a Fury, like in your, so you obviously QT, you've already said that there's not really a place in PvP for Fury. Do you agree with that, CSW? Or
yeah, not at all. Unless you want to pop wreck and whirlwind a group of, you know, the enemy faction in Warsong Gulch. Like, it's never going to be seen in arena, and it's not a serious build at all.
Right, okay. So we've just had a question thrown out, which I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to be able to answer. So I'm hoping one of you can. CSW, probably you, maybe more than QT. So the Shadow Moon Insignia trinket, you're in Sunwell.
Yeah, it's big trinket. So let me just get the stats in front of me.
Yeah, I'm going to do exactly the same.
Shadow Moon Insignia. Dude, I love this trinket. It's one of my favorite trinkets in the game. So it gives you 36 defense rating, which is big. It gives you 32 dodge rating, which is big. So already this is a huge passive avoidance trinket. Okay, so straight away it's like amazing. And then the on use is 1750 HP for 20 seconds. Yes. So one thing that I notice playing classic is people not really valuing the life-giving gem from Blackwing Lair. So that gives you 15% HP in classic, and that's a big trinket. This is kind of like a smaller version of that, but the trade-off of it being small is that you get passive stats, so you get lots of avoidance from that trinket. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like, staying alive as a tank is basically your paramount objective. If you die, the chance of a wipe is huge. In TBC, like there are I don't know if there are any like bosses that are tauntable. There are virtually no tauntable bosses. So if your main tank dies, it goes bad really quickly. And trinkets like this, or life-giving gem, or Morose's lucky pocket watch, things that you can have a reactive, like it's an extra cooldown, and they are very impactful in raids. If you can do something that stops you from dying, you've helped the raid so much. Like it's so big. Like if the main tank goes down, it's such like what I hate is when you see main tanks who die, who have shield wall on cooldown, who have last stand on cooldown, who have a trinket on cooldown, and it's like, dude, like that's a misplay unless you got destroyed in 2 seconds.
Yeah, like when you see a DPS die with a health stone that they've not used, for example.
But also in speedruns, if you have last stand available, you can push hard. You can get clapped, and you can be like, "Oh, last stand. Okay, that's kind of like my limit for where I am now. I've lost one of my big cooldowns. I maybe don't want to push it as hard." So you really want to have a dynamic tempo, I think, when you have and when you don't have big cooldowns. And it's not a massive cooldown, the Shadow Moon insignia, but every little helps.
So it's a trinket that you may be using it on one of your characters now, but you would recommend people trying to get,
It's this passive avoidance by far, and the on use is, how many times do you get killed and the overkill damage is 10,000? Never. Generally, unless something's majorly gone wrong, that little bit of HP is going to be big.
Yeah,
but you need to be skillful enough and aware enough that you use it, obviously, or else the on use might as well not exist. What I recommend is having a weak aura that makes a noise or something when you're 50% HP, and then another one which is louder and more visual on screen when you're 25% HP. So you have you're in trouble at 50% HP and you're going to die at 25% HP. So you can reactively trinket, last stand, do what you need to do to survive without even thinking about it. You hear like, a dudun or something, you straight away you're using your small cooldowns because you want to play it safe maybe, and then as soon as you drop mega low, you're popping everything.
Yes, that's good advice actually. Yeah, definitely. It's probably stuff that only good tanks like yourself do. I can't imagine everyone's doing that, but there we go. So we've answered someone's question anyway. I mean, another question that's just been asked. We're going off on so many tangents, but it's good. It's good. We want to give warriors in the community as much knowledge as possible. So when we're getting these questions coming in midway through, it's a good thing. So obviously, Stone is crazy. He's just said, how many warriors do you think will be using a 25-man raid? Oh, have I?
Yeah, I hear you now again. Yeah, you just dipped out for a second.
Oh, I don't know what happened there. So we've had Stone is Crazy ask how many warriors you think will be using a 25-man raid except tanks. So obviously we have sort of briefly spoke about this, but I would say one.
Maybe one, yeah.
Maybe one.
0.8, that's kind of where I'd be thinking. Most of the time one, but maybe not.
QT, have you got I'm hoping you're going to argue and say, nope, there's going to be 12.
Nah, yeah, one probably, yeah.
Damn it, I hate it when we all agree. I want to have a full-blown podcast argument going on.
The unique things that the warrior brings is improved thunderclap and Sunder armor, but Sunder armor can get replaced with improved expose armor. You've got battle shout as well, which is unique and commanding shout. Other than that, it's the blood frenzy, which might be outweighed by a bigger pumper than your arms warrior. And that's about it. Also, like there's tanking, you have big cooldowns like shield wall and last stand are big cooldowns. So if the content is challenging, the warrior tank can eke out ahead.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
If it's easy, like it doesn't matter, you can just go for if the tank isn't getting hit hard, if the content is nerfed and the tank isn't getting hit hard, the warrior loses a lot of its power.
In the last 90 seconds, we've just made 10,000 warriors all re-rolled warlock.
Yeah, I mean, do it. If you want to raid, you should be. You talk to your raid leader, talk to your guild leader. Who wants to play warrior in TBC? You can be the bigger man and say, okay, I'll re-roll, or you can say, I am dedicated to the warrior class. I want to be the warrior DPS. You know, you might have to be dynamic in that you play either arms or fury. Hell, you might like your main tank might dip and you might need to play protection. You know, you want someone who like just give all the Nax gear to some guy if you really trust them to continue to play into TBC, and you know, have a focus on that person being your warrior champion in a sense, and have them, you know, go forward as the warrior, and everyone else, you know, after you clear Nax for the first time, get leveling your warlock and get doing, you know, get Nax warlock gear. Boom.
Yeah, which I mean, that's the approach I'm taking with a paladin. To be fair, so I'm 100% going to be a paladin.
Play whatever you want.
Yeah, you can have fun, but you know, who wants to have fun? Don't have fun on WoW. Go with the meta, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the paladin. You know, I'm healing at the moment in classic because obviously tanking as a prop paladin in classic is AIDS. But obviously, my aspiration in TBC is to be, you know, the main paladin tank. But should we not need it, and the meta turns out to be, fuck it, let's just take feral druids. You know, where it's just that they're just that good, that much threat, that much easy survivability due to being able to like armor cap early in tier 4 and stuff like that. I'm fully prepared to heal if I need to heal. I don't know about rep, but
I think warrior is one of the worst classes to go into TBC because you might just get pushed out of the raid. Like you'll always want druids. Like any spec is good. Moonkin is a bit on the fence because you might just roll a dream state, whatever. Hunters are always wanted, mages are always wanted, paladins are always wanted, priest, rogue again is okay, maybe not rogue early on.
Yes, my man.
Warrior and rogue are basically the classes where you like rogue in particular, like get ready to not raid. And then warrior, you know, 1 or 2 in the raid total. Every other class is guaranteed at least one of them in the raid. You know, whereas the warrior and particularly the rogue are teetering on the edge.
I'll be honest with you, we're not going to cause any offence to anyone because I'm pretty sure I've not got a single rogue subscriber on YouTube. Because they get so much, not hate from me. I love rogue. I love playing rogue because it's fun, but they're fucking useless in TBC.
I will just say, in a vacuum, rogues are the worst generally. But I'd much rather bring a good rogue player than a bad warlock player. Because they're going to be wiping you, they're not going to be summoning, you're just going to be frustrated, they're not going to have shards, they're not going to be, you know, doing health stones every pull, and it's just going to be an absolute ball ache having a warlock who sucks. Like, I'd rather have a motivated and a knowledgeable rogue than, you know, abyss geared warlock, just because bring the player, not the class, ultimately.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen rogues do really well on private servers, as in, yeah, they do decent damage. They're never going to be top, but, you know, they're middle of the pack, which is nice. You know, we done a roster video recently to set the guild up for success in classic TBC. And we've got one rogue, admittedly. He's on the bench. But, you know, as in, we want one rogue in the raid team, but I've been getting a lot of backlash on that. Saying, no, you want 2 or 3 because, you know, glaives are going to go to waste and all of this. Yeah, it's that I'm getting hate, that the fact that I'm not thinking about some legendaries that are still not going to make them do more damage than a hunter or a warlock. So, you know.
I mean, rogues definitely pop off at the very end of tier 5 and like the end of tier 6.
Yeah, but it's still just not a stackable class because they don't bring anything, do they?
They're selfish in their damage.
Exactly. But right, cool. Okay, so I think is there any talents? Because we didn't do this on arms, but I'll be honest with you, we really, just during the conversation, we covered most of the important talents in arms anyway. Is there any talents that you would want to sort of bring up or talk about or really say, you know, this is an amazing talent? So, Cutie, I'll start with you. Is there anything in the Fury tree before we move over to Prot that you want to raise?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing regarding, like, playing a rogue or warrior early on in TBC. I mean, I guess people should just enjoy, if you like PvP, Season 1 and 2, you should just enjoy the PvP scene, to be honest. Because warriors really have a good time. And then maybe, like, after the Tier 5, yeah, you could start raiding more. But, like, overall, guilds do need to level and gear up their rogues, because at some point they will be good. And, like, stacking warlocks or mages and something like that only is in some way gonna be bad, because at some point you will need like 1 or 2 rogues, because when they get glaives and stuff like that, they're gonna start kicking, and if you then like have to start gearing up a rogue all of a sudden, that's gonna take some time. So I would say bring a few rogues, and I mean, if you play a rogue and enjoy it a lot, just make sure you spend a lot of time, or like a warrior, spend a lot of time and gear up your character, because it will pay off, and then you will get a spot compared to like other people. But it's not like you have to reroll no matter what, because there's always something to do in TBC, and you could always just tank and then gear up that way and get Fury or Arms gear at the same time.
I think you make a good point about the rogues, because particularly if you're spamming warlocks in your guild, there aren't going to be enough spellcaster weapons to go around. So the warlocks will be relying on the rogues to help them in arena to get the arena weapons to compensate for the lack of drops for them in raids.
Yeah, and
exactly.
What about the lack of interrupts as well? So that's another one I've got when I was doing the roster video, So Magferrodon, for example, I'm sure there's other bosses, but we'll use that as an example, needs quite a lot of organised interrupts. Now, we know you're probably going to have an Ellie Shaman, which is going to be spell hit cap, so, Earthshock's never going to miss, and it's, 6-second cooldown. You're going to have an Enhancement Shaman who's, I want to say, can miss, because they're not going to be spell hit capped, but they're going to be melee hit caps. I mean, is there, by not taking warriors and rogues, is it making certain bosses more difficult, just by not having a plethora, and I hate that word, of interrupts?
Yeah, a little bit, but I don't think it'll be a big deal. Particularly for the big guilds who want to really lean into that meta, because they'll be pre-popping, shadow prop pots. So if they do get hit by the volley, they don't care. Their healers will be good enough that they'll be able to react to it. And they'll have their resto shamans on interrupt duty, their tanks on interrupt duty, and they'll also, if they're not stacking the adds, they'll be max ranging them and outranging the volley. So they'll work around the mechanics, so they don't have to rely on the class setup, which they haven't gone for. Or, if you're a big guild, you'll just bring in your warriors. There's no attunement to get into Magtherodon for that specific example. They'll just walk in, hit a few pummels, and then get kicked when it's, next boss.
Sorry, that made me laugh. Bring them in, get them to do the interrupts, and then fuck off, will you, mate? We don't want you in the raid. You don't do any damage.
I mean, that's what the top-end guilds do, You're there to serve a purpose.
God, can you imagine being hyped for TBC, going in?
You go and hit pummel 3 times. Yeah, that's great.
Leave. I mean, it's amazing.
Round first Magtherodon. That's it.
All right, cool. So that's Arms, that's Fury. Let's move on to Prot. I think we're doing pretty well for time anyway. So, obviously it would be fucking really rude if I didn't let you kick off with Prot, TSW. So
I don't mind. I can fill in at the end.
No, I reckon you could probably.
I don't want to worry explain on the Prot tree.
No, you can just talk for 30 minutes now. So just crack on. Go on. So PvE. Can we just straight away just rule out Prot in PvP? And that's a genuine question. Can we? Is there any comp where a Prot warrior is useful?
No.
Tell us all about PvE then.
Okay. It's pretty cool. So on the talent tree, I do think that we're going to see definitely more sword and board tanking, not so much dual wielding as we have with Classic. But again, it depends on how hard the content hits the tank. Because in Classic, it doesn't hit hard at all. Like, you don't care about the crushes, you don't care about the crits. If you're playing TBC on a appropriately tuned server, let's say, you do care about the crushes and the crits. Bosses can, pre-nerf crush for like 20,000, and you'll be one shot. So hopefully it's that kind of. You'll just die. So I hope it's that kind of tuning where you actually have to have a shield on number 1 and have to press shield block to avoid the crush number 2. But going back to the talent tree, it's fairly similar, really. Like the biggest change is going to be Devastate. So what's really annoying now in Classic is that Sunder Armor seems like a really thankless task because it does no damage, and all it does is the reduction of armor of the target, which is cool, but I'm sure the Fury Warriors watching this think to themselves, well, I'll just not attack the boss for 1 second, wait for 39 other warriors to use their 15 rage on Sundrama, and I'm going to go in straight away with a Bloodthirst and out damage them straight away, just because I waited 1 second whilst everyone was doing their
Well,
Sundrama.
it's interesting you say that. So I was in well, actually, was it last night or the night before? I think it was the night before last. I was in a full MC pug, and then basically the same group. We went to AQ20 and then Zul'Gurub. Obviously, as you can imagine, by the time we got to Zul'Gurub, I didn't know what was going on because I'd drunk far too much gin. So I don't remember being in Zul'Gurub, but I was there and I got loads of loot, so it was brilliant. But in AQ20 was where I noticed it, where all the warriors actually had like weak auras announcing how quick took to get to 5 stacks.
3.4 seconds to get 5 cylinders. Yeah.
And I looked here and was like, for fuck's sake, is that really what it's come to? You know, where they're fighting to go. I think one of them went up in like 2.1 second or something, really fast. And it got announced on Discord. The raid leader was like, really good job with the Sunders. The mob died in 5 seconds. Who gives a fuck how quick it took, to get Sunder up? I didn't get it.
New PB.
Oh, it's amazing. But sorry, carry on. One thing that I just want to ask you, like as a personal question, as a warrior, like, do you like the Fury prop meta in Classic, or would you rather a shield?
Oh, you've caught me off guard there, because it kind of depends. It just depends on how you like the meta. Do you like utilizing your class to the fullest? If yes, then sure. You want to play Fury propped, but you obviously do lose that class identity because you're more of a Fury warrior than you are a protection warrior. You're not really relying on your shield. You're just a DPS warrior with Defiance. Defiance is the talent that gives you 15% more threat. So you're basically a Fury warrior with 15% more threat.
So the only reason I ask is because, like, correct me if I'm wrong, and make me look like an idiot. I'm going to love it. But in the background, your TSW, your logo, your brand logo for your channel,
shield.
It's Bulwark of Azzinoth, if I remember.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me. So as someone who's got a shield in the background, I assume, like, I love Bulwark of Azzinoth. I fucking can't wait to get it on a paladin. I don't care whether it's BIS or not. I just want it because it looks so good. If I had that sat in the bag, but then I had to dual wield, I'd be dying inside. Because I want that shield on my back because it looks so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool shield. And yeah, I agree with you mostly. Yeah, but it just comes down to the meta. It would be really, really painful to use. I mean, I suppose you could sword and shield with in a classic raid, but you'd be doing, I don't know, like 15% less threat or whatever it works out to be if you were wearing the shield. I think a lot of people don't understand that you don't lose that much threat by going with a shield. Like the offhand is just there, like, missing a lot of the time and just getting a little bit more damage and a bit of rage. Like the offhand isn't like, oh my god, it's, game breaking. It's just a nice to have. And if you're not dying, then you certainly don't need the shield. So you're getting a little something instead of a shield that does virtually nothing if you're not dying, which you aren't in Classic.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But yeah, I'd be really annoyed in TBC if we do have a dual wield meta, because that means that the content tuning is trivial.
Yeah, and there's them really nice shields. I'm using Bulwark of Azzinoth as an example, but they're just throughout the entirety of the tiers in TBC. There's more or less one shield that you want from each tier as a tank, where you look at it and you're like, yeah, fucking, I want that bad boy. But another really interesting one, and now I get asked this a lot, but I give them my opinion when they ask, but I think your opinion is going to hold a lot more weight. Thunder Fury. So you've just got to 60 on your Warrior on Classic. Do you want Thunder Fury for TBC?
Yeah. It depends what state the Thunder Fury is in, because it got some revisions going into TBC retail. It did get quite a big nerf fairly shortly into TBC. But the general consensus is it does like 20%-ish, 15-20% more damage or threat than the weapon itself. So what does Thunder Fury have, like 54 DPS or something on it? Like if you crank that up by like 15-20%, like it's that bigger of a weapon in reality, once you factor in the proc, and then when we go to tanking heroics or something where you're doing multiple mobs, that like secondary thunderclap, if you think of it that way, is just going nuts. So generally, it's like Mallet of the Tide from tier 5 is when you're going to be thinking about replacing it. Well, I definitely would, I think, replace it with Mallet of the Tide, just because how expertise works. Because expertise is reducing the enemy's chance to dodge and parry. That's buffing every single ability you do, whereas the Thunder Fury is just proccing more damage and more threat, which is great, but you get more versatility with the expertise. But as soon as you go back to a 5-man and the bosses aren't level 73 boss level, you don't need as much hit, as much expertise. Their parry chance is lower, their dodge and like the miss chance is lower, so you're hitting them more reliably anyway. So Thunder Fury shines there. So for leveling, if you're going Fury Warrior, have a Thunder Fury in your offhand, and it'll just act as a Thunderclap-ish ability, just going around hitting stuff.
Does it stack with Thunderclap in TBC?
No. So on some private servers, yes, but it shouldn't do. So you can test that if you're playing on a private server.
Yeah,
it's broken as hell if it does.
Yeah, that was why I asked, because I have seen on private servers where it stacks, and I'm like, I can't see that being a thing.
Now, on some private servers, you can stack everything that has that kind of effect, and you can make the bosses hit like half as quick, or twice. Like increase their swing time by a massive amount.
So would it be useful to have your off tank using it? Because again, this is a question I get asked a lot, and I say yes. So on the basis you're going to have minimal amount of warriors. So if you had, like, let's say me and you were tanking together. So you're the main tank, you're the warrior, I'm a prop paladin. If I had Thunder Fury and I was just, dealing threat, making sure I'm second on the threat meter, but also using Thunder Fury to obviously keep the debuff up so you don't need to, would that be useful?
In Classic, that's what a lot of people did back in the day. You had the main tank just throwing out, with a fast one hand, lots of heroic strikes, and the off tank, who isn't getting hit by the boss most likely for most encounters, the off tank struggles to deal threat, so you're just there auto attacking the boss with Thunder Fury, and you're relying on those procs to bring you up on the the threat meter to be second. So in that regard, Thunder Fury is a really good off-tank weapon, just because it bolsters. It's like having a Thunderclap on cooldown. Like, it procs so frequently and does so much extra threat. It's a fairly consistent just threat boost to the weapon.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
In TBC, it doesn't stack with improved Thunderclap, so you'll get the damage boost and the effect will happen, and you'll get the animation of the whirlwind. But every raid is going to have improved Thunderclap if you have a warrior there. It's an absolute must-have, just so the tank takes a substantial amount less damage. And once you have that Thunder Fury, the slow effect is not going to be applying.
So we've now got young Petto, I'm assuming is playing a rogue in chat, basically trying to get a raid spot with your TSW by being a rogue with Thunder Fury and saying, well, now he's got a purpose. That's it. Don't worry about an off-tank. Just bring a rogue with it. Just say no.
I'm just trying to think, would it work? At level 70, I think the damage, it depends. It does proc quite a bit. I think the rogue might die, though. If I'm tanking, I've got to be relying on my Thunderclap. It's going to be really annoying if there's a rogue there, hitting everything with his offhand Thunder Fury. And I'm there, hitting Thunderclap, and I'm not quite keeping up with his AoE threat.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
But no, so QT, obviously, again, let's move over to you. So prop, what's your thought on prop warriors? And it can be very sort of broad view, do you know what I mean? As in their usefulness compared to other tanks, because I appreciate TSW did obviously just cover a lot.
Yeah, I mean, for leveling, I don't know if I would actually take them. If I'm I'm gonna play as a mage, so for leveling in dungeons and stuff like that, I would probably go with a paladin. But overall, yeah, they seem nice, and I mean, the fact that you can always play as Fury or Arms and DPS, and then off tank in raids and stuff like that, yeah, just it feels okay. But for leveling, nah, I wouldn't take them.
I think my question really, QT, and obviously I'm going to ask you it because I don't want to ask TSW it because we'll fall out. So, do you need prop warriors in TBC? Like, in all seriousness, you've got feral druids, you've got prop paladins. Do you see a need for a prop warrior?
Well, I think we talked about this when we were talking about the druid, like just stacking 2 feral druids. But like on the other hand, having like this arms warrior, fury warrior, and the raid who can actually pick up the plate tanking gear is going to be really amazing.
Yeah, so for loot distribution.
I mean, CW will know for sure because I haven't played a warrior myself in TBC. But I feel like if you're just going to stack druids and stuff like that, it's going to be the same with like not bringing warriors and rogues to the raid. Like all of a sudden, people are going to need too much of the same gear, which is going to be bad. And I mean, warrior tanks isn't really that bad, I would say. I've played with a lot of warriors, like as a main tank when I'm playing TBC raids and stuff like that.
Well, actually, early on in Tier 4, as I say, I've not gone particularly far in private servers. I wouldn't, claim that I have. There was 2 prop warriors in particular. I'll call both of them out, so if they're watching this, they'll feel really good about themselves. But Arcax and Perry, both of them play prop warriors, and I struggle to say that there was any stronger tank. As in everything seemed easier with them tanking, other than on AoE packs, obviously. On AoE packs, yeah, fuck that, you want a prop paladin. But we had very, very good feral druids, and feral druids that have been on these podcasts. And they were strong, don't get me wrong, but it did seem, and that rhymed, it did seem, though, like the prop warriors just took less damage. And I'm talking from a holy priest perspective. My main was a holy priest on Endless, and healing a prop warrior does seem so much more consistent than a feral druid. So on a prop warrior, I can almost predict every swing, whereas on a druid, it can seem a bit spiky.
Oh, yeah. I think I've been quite reserved when talking about warriors. Like, I think because the meta in Classic is warriors, like it's easy for the meta to bleed over into TBC, and I don't want to give anyone if you're stacking more than 20 warriors in a raid now, you're playing the meta, you're probably going to be playing the meta into TBC. If you don't currently have 20 warriors in your raid, you're not going to all this min-maxing stuff that we're talking about isn't going to be a consideration to you. Play what you like, have fun with your friends. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So, but you as a prop warrior for years and years and years, prop warrior in TBC. I mean, do you think you're... go through the tiers. So go Tier 4, Tier 5, Tier 6. How strong do you think you are?
How hard the content is and how hard the tank's getting hit. The druid is the tank that can take the biggest hit in the game before dying. So if the mobs are hitting 20k, the druid will be able to survive that first. 20 mitigated hit, because they'll be able to get the HP there first. But if the bosses are two-shotting the tanks, then a warrior is really good because you can physically take the hits and not get one shot. But then if there's any spike damage or an enrage, the warrior has the shield wall, the last stand, and the cooldowns. Then it's really clever, I think, the way that Blizzard have designed it, because it's not cookie cutter at all. If you want to take the biggest hit in the game, druid. If you want to take the second biggest hit in the game, it's warrior. But if it's spiky damage and you need to use a cooldown or spec into improved shield wall and tank the bosses hard in rage, 400% more damage on the boss, you can sit in a shield wall for 15 seconds and just be like, ha 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 ha, you've got a 10-minute enrage. With my shield wall, we've got a 10-minute, 15-second enrage. And that's really big. So that can be absolutely groundbreaking for the warrior. But again, if the bosses don't hit hard enough, the warrior's going to be struggling to be using their normal rotation and heroic strike on every single melee swing, because that's big threat boost for the warrior. But you need to be taking a sufficient amount of damage for that to happen. And if you're not spamming heroic strike, your threat's being cut by 20% or 15% or so. That's significant.
Do you have any threat issues, against warlocks or anything like that? You
kind of ride it right on the edge. the way that I view it as a tank is the tank's HP or the tank staying alive is more important than doing damage. How many times do you perfect an encounter mechanically and you hit the enrage timer with everyone alive, all combat reses alive, and everyone's happy? Basically never,
Yeah,
right?
never.
Because first of all, the game isn't designed to be tuned that way, but also, people have errors in their gameplay or whatever. So realistically, what happens is you have a give and take and some leeway where it comes to damage. So basically, there's nothing wrong with giving the tank 5 seconds to hold aggro at the start, and then you start shadow bolting. That 5 seconds is so unlikely to cause you that enrage wipe at the end of the whatever 10-minute enrage. Like, it's more or less a non-issue. Only if you're going for like world first attempts or something, or sub 30-minute AQ clears, or like sub 40-minute AQ clears, do those seconds actually have a big impact when all is said and done.
Well,
So
I mean, we're going really far back, don't get me wrong, but it always used to be wait for 5 sunders.
Yeah,
Once
because
it's
it was
5
so
sunders, you start.
reliable, and it's such an easy rule to follow. It was such an easy rule to follow, and it had such a big impact on the fight. It was like people don't realize as well how big of an impact that is. Like, the way that threat works is in melee you need 110 threat to pull aggro. At range you need 130% threat of the tank to pull aggro. Because they're percentage based, the longer the fight goes on and the more threat the tank has, that 10% threat that you need gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the fight goes on. So in the first 10 seconds of the fight, maybe I've done 3 or 4 attacks on the boss. That warlock needs 30% more, which is maybe 1 shadow bolt. Whereas at the 5-minute mark, that 30% is maybe like 30 shadow bolts. There's a big difference in what you need to do to pull threat. So initially, giving the tank breathing room on threat really has a big impact, as well as breathing room going forward.
Makes sense. And it's exactly that. It is. But unfortunately, we're in a world where it's a DPS horny.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like fucking. I saw the tank charge. That means I can start attacking. He's not even hit the boss yet. You could be mid charge and someone will start casting. Because it's like, well, he's already charged in. I'm good. I can go.
That's why saving rage from the previous pack is so important, because if you go dry with no rage into a boss encounter, you're relying on that melee swing to, particularly in Classic where there's no misdirection. Like, misdirection will be huge in Burning Crusade.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when the hunter attacks, but it's the threat is redirected to the tank. I think it's for the first 3 attacks or something.
Yeah, that's right.
But you don't have any of that in Classic, so you're relying on your auto attack or whatever ability you're able to squeeze in to do more threat than anyone's healing, anyone else's damage, and then for the mob to attack you. So you're relying on quite a lot. So if your auto attack gets parried, you do 0 threat. But if the boss is still happy to attack you and you dodge that attack, you're in really, really bad situations. That's why it's so important to keep your rage from pack to pack. But a lot of, like in TBC, if the content's difficult, healers will need mana, or you might need to res someone between pulls. So that's when the rage can dwindle. So again, like, misdirection is just a nice buffer to the tank. It means that it's not just the tanks who are pulling. It can literally be the hunters pulling the threat onto the tanks, which is, it's really nice going into TBC.
Yeah, you never want to charge in. You never want to go in dry, do you? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Never. Just never. I've been sat here chuckling to myself for ages. When you said you don't want to go in dry, I was like, it's a man after my own heart. He knows. Yeah, you never want to do that.
Yeah.
So overall, again, now, because we'll start reining it back in a little bit. So prot, PVE... Yeah, obviously it's useful. PvP, useless. And then obviously would there be any guild that you can think of, and again, this is open to both of you, where you would want more than one prot warrior? Would you do any tier 5, tier 6, Sunwell? Would you do any of that content with more than one prot warrior? Or are we saying really in the majority of guilds there'll be that guy, that one really reliable warrior TSW who's going to be there every raid? He is your prot warrior.
you like we have at the moment. We have one warrior who's popping back and forth between protection and arms. So that's the best spot to be, because he can be what we need him to be as and when.
Yeah, so you want the DPS warrior in the guild to also be able to tank if needs be.
Yeah, if there are any warriors watching this, and you're dead set on being the Fury warrior or the Arms warrior, or even to a smaller extent the Prot warrior, it really pays to be more flexible. You know, your raid will really appreciate it, or your raid leader or whoever will really appreciate it if you're able to be more flexible. The same with anyone. You know, going to TBC, there's a lot of stress involved for raid leaders trying to make the group composition and to cut people from the guild, see who's leveling, see who wants to play TBC. The more flexible you can be, the better. Particularly with how min-maxy and people are pushing classic, there's nothing stopping you from being a warlock on launch of TBC, and then the next week just start leveling your warrior up and try and squeeze your warrior into the raid if you are playing a lot, and you can get another 70 relatively quickly. But yeah, one warrior is a staple. He'll probably be your main tank if the fights are hitting hard enough that it warrants using a warrior.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then the second one is only for some encounters. If you need another tank, a warrior, respec, you're fine.
Yeah, makes sense. And QT, what's your sort of thoughts on that? Prot warriors in how many you want in a group, obviously.
I mean, I would probably
be more
go with
specific.
one,
I meant raid roster. Sorry, I should have been more specific.
Yeah. Well, I would probably go with one in a raid roster, but with all the classic warriors, and we still don't know if they want to reroll. I guess some guilds would actually end up with 2 of them, because it also depends what have they achieved on their warriors. Have they got Thunder Fury? Have they got Scarab Lord and stuff like that? Do they really want to reroll for reroll a warlock or something like that? So I guess it all depends how's the leveling stuff is gonna look like. If there's not gonna be a lot of other tanks and only warriors, I guess we'll have to stick with those. But mainly I would probably try to get 2 different tanks if it was me, to sort out the gear way better. So having a feral tank and having a warrior, I think that is gonna be a deal if it was me leading a guild.
It's actually a really good point as well, actually. I mean, I could be well off here, don't get me wrong. I've seen warlocks with Scarab Lord. I've seen rogues with Scarab Lord, But I think with the vast majority at the moment, would I be right in saying probably are warriors? As in the raid leader, the main tank, the guild leader. There's probably more Scarab Lord warriors than other classes. So maybe less likelihood of them wanting to reroll.
Rank 14s as well, warrior.
Yeah, oh yeah, that as well. Yeah, exactly. Would you after doing that grind and potentially maybe doing rank 14 and Scarab Lord, would you really be happy to reroll? Going to be interesting times. But a real quick recap. So, and again, this is, you take this knowledge and use it as you want. I appreciate some of it you might not like, but that's the unfortunate truth sometimes. But arms warriors, you're probably going to want 1 in PVE at a maximum, and in PvP, we're agreeing that obviously it's the go-to spec. Fury, it's got its place, but you're probably not really. You're not going to PvP as Fury and unless it's an exceptional. So what TSW said, unless you're an exceptional PVE sort of Fury warrior doing enough damage to make up for the 4% physical damage all your hunters and enhancement shaman and whatever else and tanks are going to lose, then you're probably going to end up armed. So Fury's not got much of a place either, but there is a place for it if you're that good. And then Prot, most guilds are going to want a Prot warrior. It's as simple as that. And obviously if you're Prot in PvP, you probably shouldn't be PvPing. So we'll round this up now with just... And I'm genuinely interested in this one because I don't know. I don't even know what I'm going to potentially add to this next minor discussion because it's only going to be a few minutes. So TSW, when you start a warrior on a fresh TBC server and you ding 70, what's the first maybe 1 or 2 items? Like, what are you gunning for really early?
If it's continuing on from Classic or a fresh private server.
Is the I don't know. Is there a difference for you?
More applicable? I think so. Yeah. Because if it's a fresh no gear, if it's from Classic TBC, the impact is a lot smaller because you've got your tier 3 to fall back on and all your Classic gear. So it's a much more forgiving. So you're focusing way more on the attunements and just physically getting your character into the raids. Whereas if you're going in on a fresh private server, you want to be picking up some items as well. And also, if you're going hardcore on a private server, you've probably got to wait for a few people to level as well up, maybe.
All right, so let's go with fresh. Let's say it's fresh. Let's say Blizzard are really nice and they release fresh TBC private server, not private servers, fresh TBC classic servers where everybody's level 1. What when you ding 70, what is maybe that one item? It could be a reputation item, could be a dungeon item. Like what's the one big thing that you'd be going for?
So there is a quest in Hellfire where you can get the Regal Protectorite. This is in Hellfire, the first zone in Outland.
Is that the defense and health trinket? Yes,
exactly. So the on-use health is very similar to the Shadow Moon Insignia trinket we spoke about earlier that I got very excited about. The reason why the Regal Protectorate trinket is so good is it gives you defense rating, which you need to be crit immune. And the on-use 900 health is really welcome as well. So in TBC, you need to be crit immune or else you'll take crits. And because the tuning in TBC hopefully is more in line with what we experienced when we were playing TBC back in the day, not this, it's pretty easy in Classic. You will want to be crit immune. So defense rating is very welcome. So it's that trinket from Hellfire, and then it's basically just Netherstorm quests. You can do all of Netherstorm quests and pick all of the defense rating rewards, and the Regal Protectorate trinket from Hellfire, and you're crit immune. That's as simple as it gets, really. So that's the baseline, and you're good to step into Karazhan.
I genuinely didn't realise that. That's really
as simple
good.
As it gets.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was that easy. Yeah, like just Netherstorm quests and that one trinket to get crit immune.
That will give you just crit immunity.
So what about you, QT? Oh, go on, sorry.
Oh, and then on top of that, if you've got engineering, make the 45 stamina trinkets. Obviously, you'll drop a lot of defense, dropping defense rating trinkets. And then it's just the reputation for the Helm enchant. If you want to go for the Helm enchant, like the Zorgarub current Helm enchant is BIS in TBC. But if you need the avoidance or a little bit more defense rating, go for the Keepers of Time, revered Helm enchant.
Do you find any use? So what I've put on screen at the moment is the Goblin rocket launcher trinket. So I talk about this quite a lot because it's something that I want on my Paladin, to be fair. I'm already Goblin engineering now, and I want to make it in as early in TBC as I can. Do you find the use effect useful as a warrior?
It's so useful. We were doing Void Reaver the other day, and I had Goblin rocket launcher on cooldown, so I ran in. The issue with warrior and running in dry is because in TBC you really don't want to get crushed or crit because the bosses do hit hard. You need to run in with a blood rage for rage and a shield block to not get crushed. So you're running in with an auto attack because you don't have rage unless you pop a rage potion. You don't have the rage to use any offensive ability on the boss. So you're relying on that Goblin rocket launcher to not get resisted for starters, because it can resist, to hit that boss for about 1,000 damage, so that the boss is on you straight away. And that's also when the hunters fail to misdirect on the pole. But
yeah, won't talk about that. So QT,
but yeah, it's big. It's so big.
Yeah, I quite like it, and I'm looking forward to it.
The stamina is really massive. It's guaranteed. You don't need to wait for a drop from a dungeon or a quest, or it's just solo content. Get the trinket. It's easy. Sorry, QT, I'll let you talk.
Yeah, so QT, hand over to you what items you'd go for, because I just need to step away for 30 seconds. So I'll just let you keep talking.
Yeah, well, that was pretty much the item I was going to talk about. Beside the fill steal, I feel like that is a really strong set. I don't know what you think, Warrior.
I'm sorry, I've just started a raid on TBC. What do you say, sorry, QT? I'm sorry.
The fell steal set. The
that's,
helm and stuff like
that's
that.
big.
How do you feel about it?
Very strong. They've got lots of defense rating and lots of stamina and lots of gems. So basically, if you don't want to do anything specific, or if you don't know, the answer is gem stamina. Like 90% of the time, you want to be gemming stamina, because if you have too much avoidance, not that this will be a problem until like end of tier 5, tier 6, like you're not going to run into scenarios where you have too much avoidance that the boss is unable to attack you reliably and you don't get enough rage to do your abilities, so you have very little threat. But early on, you just want stamina and armor so you can actually survive and not die, and Fell Steel does that in spades. It has so much armor, so much stamina, and then gem slots that you just throw in more and more stamina. So you could be leveling ding 70, you're in greens and really bad gear. You get that three pieces of blacksmithing crafted gear, the Fell Steel set, and you're good to jump into this level 70 normals immediately, and maybe even dabble into a few of the heroics, particularly if you have a little bit of CC and a good healer. Like that is, again, that's like the baseline. If you don't want to do the Netherstorm quests, or if you don't want to jump straight into Kara, you want to jump straight into dungeons, or if you don't know if you're going DPS or tank and you went for the DPS quest rewards from Netherstorm, you can go for the crafted gear after the fact, maybe because you went for the DPS gear instead. Like
what
the
about
still does
the
go a long way.
Shatar rip? That epic shield you can get. How do you feel about that? Like, do you usually go for that one, or do you skip it?
I usually don't, because I end up getting the badge shield first, and the badge shield is ever so slightly better for most scenarios. I think it's got a little bit more armor and a bit less stamina, so the badge shield is a tiny bit better.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, given enough time, you'd get that shield as well. But I go for the shield first if I don't have a better shield already. Like if there's a good shield that drops from Nightbane, but yeah, you go for the bad shield generally.
Do you usually go for? I can't remember what dungeon it is. You have this heroic where you get this huge tanking sword.
Yeah, the Sun Eater from Heroic Mechanar.
Oh, Mechanar, yeah. Okay. Like that one you usually go for as well, right?
It's not that. Well, I mean, it's good, but generally speaking, what you want to think of your main hand weapon is that's your threat item, really. The damage on the main hand has a big impact on how much threat you're going to be doing, and generally speaking, the Sun Eater is in early game best in slot avoidance weapon, because it's one of the very few weapons that has no threat stats on it. It's just got the weapon damage and then dodge and defense rating, whereas almost every other tanking based weapon, or weapon that you would consider for tanking, has hit rating or expertise or something on, which is really good. So I almost never wear the Sun Eater, just because it's good for not taking damage, but it's awful for dealing threat.
Oh, okay. I guess it also depends, like if you come with or bring Thunder Fury into TBC. If you want to go for it.
Yeah. You would. I mean, what you can do if you want to min-max is you would pull with a hit rating or expertise weapon. Make sure you've got enough threat, and then once you're happy and no one's going to be pulling threat off you anytime soon, you would potentially swap to the Sun Eater. I've seen Paladin tanks do this as well if they're playing at a very high level, where they don't need to deal any more threat on the target, and the only thing that would ever wipe them is them dying. So you can swap your weapons in combat, obviously, and just go and opt for staying alive. It's similar to if you're dual wielding in Classic now as a warrior and you're so far ahead of the enrage timer and you're super happy, you're not doing a speed run, and the only thing that could ever wipe you is you dying. You can just pop on a shield and you'll be that much safer staying alive. And you're not losing anything because you're already a mile ahead on the threat meter. So that's a little optimization you can do with Sun Eater.
Yeah, it makes sense.
If you have a really garbage weapon, you can go for Sun Eater and it will be a threat upgrade despite not having any threat stats. But you've got to remember that, say for example, you have like a blue or a quest, maybe hit or expertise item. That is going to be less damage on your auto attack and on your devastate because it's a smaller hitting weapon. But at the same time, the hit rating or expertise is going towards your shield slam hitting more often, your revenge hitting more often, your auto attack hitting more often, your heroic strike hitting more often, and all of this adds up to most of the time the item with the hit or expertise being better simply because you're connecting with every ability more often that nets more threat than an item that does more damage, but the damage only applies to 3 spells.
So I obviously mine's a bit weird, and actually it'd be a good question for you, TSW. So, what do you think about really early on? And when I say really early on, you're gonna have to get lucky. Don't get me wrong, or have to have some serious amounts of gold. But what about the Dark Moon decks?
Oh yeah, they are BIS. They come out in patch 2.1. So if they're doing progressive patch cycles, you're gonna have to wait until Black Temple and Might High-Gel are available. That's patch 2.1. So we probably won't have them in game at the launch, similar to how the Titanic leggings, they only started dropping in phase 5, if I recall. I would imagine that the TBC Dark Moon cards won't be dropping until we see whichever phase we get Black Temple and Might High-Gel. So on launch, they won't be there, is what I'm expecting. So there are only the only good stamina trinkets that exist in the game will be the 36 stamina one from Heroic Underbog and these 2 ones from engineering. Yeah, and because you don't need to run a heroic, you don't need to get lucky. You literally just stand next to the engineer trainer, get some mats from the auction house, or get your friends to craft them, whatever, and boom, you've got guaranteed. Like it'll take you maybe like 2 hours to run back and forth between the auction house and the engineering trainer, and you've got best in slot trinkets until Black Temple and High-Gel. They'll last you all throughout tier 4 easily and all throughout tier 5. And maybe you don't have the gold necessarily to pay for the Dark Moon Fair cards. These engineering trinkets, for the sake of 6 stamina on each trinket, it's not make or break to any kind of guild unless you're at the top 1% of guilds, really. And they're so much cheaper, most likely, because everyone wants these now best in slot for tier 6.
Yeah, and arguably the range pool is probably so you got Madness, so you got Vengeance.
Yes,
arguably the range pool is worth more than that 6 stamina.
Yes, exactly. I'd always pull with the engineering trinket just because it is so nice.
So if we went in at 2.4.3, so let's say the same way we did with Classic where it was 1.12. How do you think the engineering head's going to be handled? Bearing in mind that the head really is classed as itemization rather than patch progression, even though it didn't come until I think it was like 2.1, might have been 2.2.
Yes, 2.1.
Yeah, 2.1. So technically, if they went progressively patch-wise, but because it's not gated by a reputation or anything like that, it's just learned off the trainer.
Yeah.
Do you think it could potentially be there on a 2.4.3 client? The only reason I ask is because it was there on Endless, but obviously wasn't there on Karazhan because Karazhan was 2.0.
Yeah, I would hope that they don't, and I don't think that they will. Because one good thing about having all these items that are really powerful, like the Dark Moon cards, like the tank, like the engineering helmets, is you like if you have really accessible best in slot items from day one, good players or players with money can just get those week 1. And then, the whole thing about playing WoW is kind of like the progression of your character. And if one of these item slots, like Lionheart Helmet for vanilla warriors, it's like you almost don't have a helmet because you've got it straight away and you forget about needing another helmet because you just got that one. It works so well. Like, it's too good. And in a gameplay sense, it's nice having some items that are powerful for a very long time. But at the same time, you're losing out on that helmet progression,
Yeah, so they're really a catch-up mechanic, aren't they, really? The Dark Moon card trinkets, all the trinkets overall for Dark Moon cards, and the engineering head, are more of you can get something really powerful once everybody else has already got something that's nearly as powerful.
Yeah, and also the caster trinket that is going to be so big. I think you covered that in your Dark Moon Fair video. Like, that trinket's going to be so big.
Yeah, I mean, the Dark Moon card trinket Vengeance, I believe it's called, for prop paladins is just going to be insane. If you could get that at launch, well, yeah, I'll be all over it.
I wonder how much it's going to sell if we go into TBC from Classic, like 1-for-1, and people go with all their gold. Like, is that going to be like a 50k trinket or more? 100k trinket? Depends what server you're on. It'll probably be the similar, well, maybe the similar price as DFT.
What, as in buying it in a raid?
Yeah, like a GDKP run. Like, however much the BIS trinkets are going now, it'll be similar price to that in TBC.
Yeah, well, you're not going to replace it for quite a while as a prop paladin, but I suppose you've got less competition, haven't you? There is only, there's only going to be prop paladins that want it. Maybe prop warriors as well. To be fair, it's probably fairly useful.
If I have the gold, I would want it. The proc is still does something for a warrior, even though I'm not wholly damage oriented. It's still
free
does some damage. Yeah, exactly.
But my so obviously I've not said what I would get. So if I was a warrior, mine's probably a little bit bit strange because there's so much more powerful stuff that you could get. But I'd probably get, on the basis that if I was playing a prop warrior, I would be engineering. I would want the engineering gun, the gyro balance corium destroyer or something like that.
Yeah,
like fairly early.
That's good. Yeah. That's patch 2.1 as well.
Oh, is it? So you can't even get that at the beginning.
So you would go to the vendor and learn the goggles and the gun
from the vendor. Oh, I thought was it not reputation? Rather. Oh, I thought gyro balance corium destroyer was on our old rep.
No, it's from the trainer is on hold if you're Alliance.
Oh, right. For some reason, I thought it was reputation gated. Again,
there's a ranged weapon from Exalted that is a hit rating agility weapon.
It could be that I'm mixing it up with. Yeah, but that's the one item as a prop warrior. It's got so much stamina on. But now I really need to give you one that would be in the game straight away, just in case that's not.
A ranged weapon?
No, just an item that I would go for. But you've already spoke about it, so I don't really want to pick it. Which it would be Sun Eater, would be the other weapon, or just the other item as a warrior that I would try and get quickly. And that's mech heroic, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care that much about Sun Eater. Because I'd rather, threat for me isn't that big of a deal, and some people, particularly if you're playing Classic, will think this is crazy. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about because threat is all that matters. That's the bottleneck for the raid. Where you're right, but at the same time, if you're wanting to one-shot content and clear it day one, particularly in TBC where things are going to be hitting harder, the tank survivability always comes first. People are speedrunning Classic now and damaging straight away, but you've got to remember that that's because the tank is staying alive. Your damage push as hard as they can, and that's great. But if the tank wasn't able to survive that damage, you would be wait for the tank to pull. Okay, the boss is coming, and it would slow down to what is the more conventional speed of raiding, not like how we're doing in Classic now. And that's simply because every single healer needs to be ready. Everyone needs to be ready to be applying their debuffs to help the tank stay alive. And the whole synergy of looking after the tank would come into play. Whereas now with Classic, it's the tank is just on his own, knows what he's doing, and he doesn't need that much healing. Hence why there's no shield.
So what if you? This again, looking at it from a perspective of a druid, actually. So if I was a druid main going into TBC, I'd be saving my gold for two things, which would be obviously epic flying this is assuming a progressive launch, yeah. So you're taking everything you've got with you. I would be going for Epic Flying and Staff of Natural Fury, which it's massive attack power, reduction in power shifting, like amazing. So what about
that's going to be so expensive?
It's going to be ridiculous. Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fucking ridiculous for anybody who knows Druid. But
are you Guildmaster in your guild?
Yeah, but I'm going Paladin, so I'm not going Druid.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because you could just say if anyone gets this drop, it goes to the Guildmaster.
It's mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead, the item that I was thinking more for warriors, which is probably going to be of a similar amount of gold, maybe. This is where you can tell me I'm wrong, but like Band of Impenetrable Defense.
Oh yeah, was it you who? Someone asked me about this in my stream the other day, but I don't think it was you.
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. But it's a really powerful ring. Well, it looks it to me. Why does it suck? See, that's why I wanted to ask you.
I swear you were on like a Twitch Smurf account the other day asking me about this.
No, it wasn't. It genuinely wasn't me. I just look at it and it's got so much stam and defense.
For it. People want a lot of gold for it. They want like 1,000 gold because it's an epic on these TBC private servers I play on. And the fact of the matter is, there's a ring from Netherstorm, the zone I said to get all the tank gear from earlier, that has like about the same amount of stamina. So it's about as good as a green from a quest reward. So bear that in mind, and you can get some group quest rewards which are not quite as good, or you can do some heroics that have rings that are more versatile. Like that ring just has. Does it just have stamina? And
it's just stamina and defense. Yeah, stamina and defense, nothing else. But it's quite high in both, though.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, if I had a lot of gold and I'm going to TBC, yes, because it is better than what you would be going in, but it's not that big. Like I never buy it on private servers.
So it's not comparable to, like I say, like Staff of Natural Fury. Technically,
nowhere near.
Yeah, that's going to be better than even the Eelhoof staff. The Eelhoof staff will give obviously more attack power, and you get hit from it, for example. But I would still, once I start, if I was under 50% mana, I would then switch to Staff of Natural Fury and start, power shifting for a little bit cheaper amounts of mana, if you like.
Yeah, it's quite nice in that regard that playing a prot warrior, you don't have to fork out the gold for these mega items that are really hard to come by. Like there's no Edge Master equivalent going into TBC.
Well, I suppose, what about Braces? Oh, fucking hell, I don't even know if I can remember the name. Braces of the Green Iron Fortress or something like that?
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's something like that. They're strong braces.
They are strong braces, and they are pre-raid bis. Get them if you can. I'd rather have these braces than that ring.
Than the ring, yeah. But just because you can get something comparable
is nice to have. Like a ring is just defense and stamina, whereas the braces have, a bit of dodge and armor, which is really nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, we've covered so much. Obviously, it's been. Yeah, even that normally we take about a minute or 2 minutes to talk about the items, but we've just sat for probably fucking 20 minutes talking about gear you're going to want as a warrior. I mean, we did really. There was a lot of prot warrior covered, though. Was there any? I mean, I'm assuming if you're going arms warrior, you're just going to want the crafted 2-hound, aren't you?
The blacksmith weapons are huge. Like you're playing arms, you need the blacksmith crafted. If you're going fury, blacksmith crafted. They should basically, like what you can do is once you hit like level 68 or 69, you could just go to Shadowmoon Valley and just start farming fire elementals to get those primal fires for your crafted gear. I think that's a viable strategy. Like you were mentioning us playing Druid to just get 58, get Flight Form, and then sit and grind the last 2 levels in Elemental Plateau, which I think is a really good idea.
Yeah, I'm just gutted because everyone's going to be doing it now. And I'm not going to be a druid, so I'm not even going to reap the benefits.
Yeah. But, I mean, the thing is, like, there's going to be so many chokes in TBC because the zone is smaller than the classic Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms. So the players are going to be forced into a much tighter area. And, like, these farming spots, if you want to farm Elemental Earth, you've got dungeons that you can farm it in. You've got several different zones you can farm it in, whereas like Primal Air in particular, there are literally like 10 or fewer NPCs in the entire game that drop it, and it's like so restricted. Like that's when layers, I think, are most warranted, not because of like the server population or there being massive crowds of players, but because it's not going to be like TBC. Like if primal airs are like 400 gold each, it's that doesn't feel right for people who want a 12 agil enchant on their cloak. Like all of a sudden the price has gone up like 10 times.
Yeah, and
it's
going to be like
primal
that. With layers, if you was to say in Classic we had, I don't know, and I'm just guessing here, let's say we had 10 layers on a server, on a really busy server, let's say 10 layers. In TBC, due to like what you said, the size of the place, you're going to need 50.
Yeah. And you'll just have people, with add-ons or whatever, just ping-ponging between layers. Like if you thought layers were bad in Classic, if we go into TBC with the layer system as it is for Classic in TBC, like it's going to be abused, 10 times. Like you're just going to be layer hopping, killing air elementals.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's going to happen, but I can't think of a more sensible way that they're going to handle it other than layers, personally. Not with the size of the servers nowadays.
They could say, oopsie, we have 5 times the drop rate of primal airs, and then that'll just flood the market and drop the price. Similar to what they did with the Black Lotus.
Black Lotus. Fucking hate Black Lotus. But that's a different story. All right, so one last thing, and this, we don't actually normally do this on any class video, but it is only really to please my curiosity. Profession-wise, on a warrior, as a serious raid leader, hardcore, going end game, wanting to, get server first and everything TSW. Like, what professions are you going to go as? Yeah, a main tank warrior.
Engineering, definitely, because the trinkets are best in slot. They don't require you to get lucky with drops. Like if it's patch 2.1 and you can get the Dark Moon set, like for progression, you're going to rush to 70 and then blast straight into the raids. You don't have it'll be annoying enough to spend an hour crafting the engineering items to skill up engineering and then get the trinkets. Like that's going to be annoying enough. Like you don't really want to be sat around farming a dungeon for your pre-raid bis. You just want to know that it's there. Let's say, for example, that you help everyone get their attunements or whatever, and you're ready to raid, and you say, okay, raid is in an hour. People are, pestering the alchemist, trying to get their final, flasks crafted or whatever, and you spend that time getting, 2 phenomenal trinkets. There's nothing that compares to having 2 45 stamina trinkets going into TBC.
Definitely. So what are you pairing with engineering, though? Level working?
If you... Well, in an ideal world, you would... I mean...
What is your prop warrior on Karazhan at the moment? What two professions?
Blacksmithing and engineering.
Yeah, so that's what I want to go on the Paladin. Exactly that.
The reason you want blacksmithing is, well, I used it for the two-handed mace to PvP, but what you really want to do, and what I did on the previous TBC server, was you want to be armorsmith, because this is something that not everyone knows. The armorsmith chest piece that you upgrade with primal nethers and nether vortex, once you have it upgraded, you could have it maximum upgraded your first run in tier 5. You have a chest piece that has higher itemization than tier 6.
Yeah, and there's also, I can't remember whether it's belt or braces, but one or the other, there's an amazing bop recipe, isn't there, as well, for belt or braces?
Red Belt of Battle, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's like second bis DPS belt. I mean, there's all sorts. There's BOP boots that you can get from a pattern that drops. The pattern's BOP. No, sorry, the pattern's BOE and the boots are BOP. I mean, there's all sorts. But yeah, it's the blacksmith chest is the big piece. The blacksmith chest also has a really interesting on use effect. So there's a half an hour cooldown that increases your health and your strength. So it's a half an hour cooldown, so it's really large. It's not as powerful as Shield Wall, but it's.
But like you said
really
earlier,
good.
it's another cooldown, isn't it? It's another sort of tool in your arsenal, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. And just having more cooldowns is never a bad thing. But yeah, like the chest piece. So I've got it in ahead of me now. So the 30-minute on use is 1.5k HP and 150 strength for 15
For how long?
seconds with a half an hour cooldown.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Again, that's fucking lovely, isn't it? For nothing.
Yeah, it's massive. But it is like a DPS orientated chess piece. So all it's got is strength, stamina, crit, and hit. So the hit's kind of nice. The crit's okay. The big armor is very useful. It just makes you that much tankier with the big armor, and it's just got lots of stamina and 3 gem slots. And again, it rivals tier 6 DPS chest piece. It's really strong. And just because it's a DPS chest piece doesn't mean you can't wear it for tanking. Likewise, many private servers, I've gone into my first Kara with gear that has intellect on, just because it dropped. Just because it's got intellect on, don't be scared. It's got more armor, more stamina. Wear it. So many people I see, so many people are just wearing items without intellect on, and it's like, if you've really not had anything drop, paladin or anything like gear drop, and
Yeah, if it's better, if it's an upgrade, it's an upgrade. Yeah, more like you say, more stamina, more armor. Yeah, what stats are on there that are useless don't really matter if the primary stats that you want are decent. So QT, if you was, and we're going to round, this is going to be it. This is so I agree with TSW anyway. I'm going engineering, blacksmithing on my paladin. I would do exactly the same on a warrior. So what professions would you choose on a warrior?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably do the same.
This is where you say alchemy and I don't know, jewel crafting.
Yeah,
just really go out there.
Skinning and herbalism.
The reason why I would go blacksmithing was because of the mace for sure. Because I like to PvP, so I would probably do blacksmithing. So I could always go PvP. And then engineering as well because of the trinkets, as TSW mentioned. And at the same time, like having that engineering is gonna be nice if you're gonna do world PvP. So I guess like combining these two are really awesome. And having engineering actually makes you able to farm money at the same time.
Oh yeah, the mode extractor.
Oh,
big.
Yeah. So that way you can have like two primary professions, but still make money without like picking herbalism, mining, or something like that. I would probably go with mining though in the beginning and farm like a lot of ores and stuff like that, since engineering and blacksmithing both requires you to make bars and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. Because I'm thinking to myself, like, if you're pushing content day one at 70, you're not going to have time to do any mining.
No, definitely not.
Also, one thing, Fake QT, I don't know if you've noticed this, but in the last like 2 or 3 years of playing private servers, there have been like exponentially more engineers moat sucking. Like it's now a very commonly known farming method, and I think in classic TBC it's going to be very popular.
Imagine with layers, if you're just at one spawn and like swapping layers.
That's
all the
true.
time.
That's true.
Yeah, so that's why I hope they make like some sort of cooldown. So if you swap a layer, you have maybe 1 or 2 hours cooldown before you can really swap to another layer. And the only way you can meet other people again is going to be with dungeons and stuff like that. But else, I hope they're going to make a cooldown, to be honest.
Yeah. Also, Fake QT, you were talking about like arena at the beginning and having multiple mages. Would you, as a gold making method, I think selling arena boosts is probably the best way to make gold.
Yeah, that and investments, because as you talked about, imagine if primals is gonna be really expensive, then you have to compensate. So like, that's why I'm investing all my gold right now in classic. So let's say I buy a stack of ores right now for like 50 silver or 1 gold.
Yeah.
In TBC, if a primal costs 200 gold, imagine how many hours I would have to farm to make 200 gold if I sold it for the same. So that's why I'm like, if you look on private servers, most stack of ores go for like 10 to 20 gold a stack. While in classic right now, it's 1 gold, 2 gold. So investing is definitely going to pay off if you have a decent amount of gold.
And the more bots that get banned between now and a TBC release as well is going to make a big difference to that.
Because like when the meta is, everyone's got their 280% speed. No one wants to be out there farming tin ore. No one wants to do that.
Also because like people who's gonna min max, for example, with enchanting for their ring enchants and stuff like that. Do they really want to go back to old dungeons and farm the greens, or do they want to like buy a profession kit from 1 to 300, for example? It's gonna be the exact same thing with like dual crafting. Are you gonna go for like crafting the good gems and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, I
like
can
investing is gonna be the thing I'm doing right now, and so far I've invested 10k gold and expect that to turn into like 50 to 100k gold pretty easily. So like a good way is just to invest gold, but at the same time, of course, having raw gold, because what?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I'm literally going to wet myself, so we need to round this up. I'm literally dancing backwards and forwards, and we've done a good couple of hours. So, if hopefully none of you have got anything to add on Warrior, because wetting myself on stream will be pretty embarrassing. Please say no, TSW. Please say no.
Yeah, selling boost TSW. Yeah, I could see that being a thing. Yeah, for the best way to make gold.
People want the weapons if they require rating.
I doubt they will, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But honestly, guys, thanks again. Obviously, Fake QT, you're here every week. Love you being here every week. TSW, obviously, you've shown just how much warrior knowledge you've got, which is amazing. So thanks for coming on. And for anybody who doesn't know, two things, what you might know. So, might not know, sorry. So he came on at the fucking shortest notice you could possibly imagine. Today was going to be Hunter, but I couldn't find a good enough hunter that I was happy with to come on. There was one very knowledgeable guy, and if you're watching, like, I really appreciate the fact I know you've got lots of experience, but like I say, go buy a mic, and then when we come to doing Hunter next, you're more than welcome to come on, but the sound check was very, very bad. So not only did Warrior TSW come on literally today, he got told 3 hours before this that please mate come and help us out, like get us out of a sticky situation. But also I'd like to just let you know how we met. So I joined his stream and he thought I was a troll. So firstly, that's the bit we're going to talk about first. So I joined, said, "Oh, where you from, mate?" That was it. I was like, well, he's English. I was like, "Where you from?" Just a casual question. He thought I was a troll. Then after that, he was like, he was fucking so set. His mindset was like, no, this guy's a troll. I don't like him. He was like all over it. But then when he actually looked at my Twitch, he went to a previous VOD, which was from like the day before or something like that. Now, this is like a 9-hour video. This was a 9-hour stream. Well, he could have clicked on anything. He clicked on a 9-hour stream and just skipped through to one random point in time, which, could have been 3.5 hours in. The first thing he heard was me saying, "I've got a small penis." out of everything. He could have clicked on anything. He could have gone 2 minutes ahead and it would have been fairly normal. But he went to the... And I'm watching this on stream. So I'm watching him stream, watching me say, I can't even remember what I said, but it was something along the lines of, like, "That's really small. I'll be back in a sec."
Oh, I remember what you said. "I need to go to the toilet. God, I've got such a small bladder, just like my cock."
That's exactly what I said. But how fun is that? Of a 9-hour VOD, you picked that exact second to watch.
It's good.
So anyway, honestly, mate, TSW, thank you so much for coming on. Short notice. You've really shared a lot of knowledge, hopefully, with the community, and yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad to have been able to sneak in and help you out. It's been my pleasure.
Legend. And QT, thank you again as always.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. And it was amazing and kind of nice I could actually be here this time. But yeah, I had an exam last week, so I couldn't really attend the last podcast.
No, that's fair enough. We've all got priorities that are going on in real life. It's not great, is it? But so next week's going to be Paladin, just to give you all a little sneak preview of what's going to go on. And we've got a very big brain Paladin who's going to be coming on. And no, it's not me. I play a Paladin, but know very little, but we've got well, he's much loved by the stream anyway. Obviously, Dr. Cal is he's going to be coming on and educating us on Paladin. So again, Fake UT, Warrior, TSW, everybody who's watching, thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.